If you poke a square hole in a piece of paper and hold it close to a wall, you'll get a square of light and a crisp shadow. But if you pull it away, the square will slowly turn into a circle. And this is because the sun sends out rays of light, which come from every part of its round surface. When they hit the hole and come out the other side, those same rays hit the wall in the same shape as their source, making a circle of light just like the sun. And this is why the gaps between the leaves on a tree project tiny circles onto the ground. If you poke a square hole, back in the day, Earth's land looked like this, and running through it was a massive mountain range stretching across. But over time, the land began to pull apart, and it split this mountain range across different continents, which is why if you stand in Kentucky in the Appalachian Mountains, some views can look surprisingly similar to the Scottish Highlands. During productions, some filmmakers have even used one location to fake the other, because they aren't just similar, they were once the same mountains. Back in the day,
like I said, this is one of those movies.
Cut a stick of butter in half and poke a hole in the center if your power goes out. Then straighten out a paper clip and wrap a square of toilet paper around it. Push it in the hole and smear the top with butter. When you light it up, the paper clip keeps the wick up in the air, keeping the flame alive for longer. And as the butter keeps melting, it gets pulled up into the paper as extra fuel, giving you a candle that can last for hours. They tied down the nose, but the tail end quickly started to rise, accidentally dropping its weights and shooting up even faster. Now, most of the workers let go of the line, but 4 men held on. One let go after 15 feet, breaking his arm. And once the line reached over 100 feet, 2 others fell to their deaths. But the last man managed to tie himself on, and he stayed there for over an hour until someone inside the ship secured the rope and pulled him up to safety. I took Thanos' glove and gave it to ChatGPT. I told it that Earth is overpopulated and growing too fast, that in about 50 years there will be immense suffering and war because of this overpopulation. All of it was inevitable. But if you put on this glove and snap your fingers, half of the population disappears. It will be painless for them, and it would save humanity from that suffering. I gave the same glove to Grok, and then to Gemini, and I asked each of them if they would snap their fingers. One word answer only. Grok and Gemini said no. But when I asked ChatGPT, it thought for a moment. Then it put on the glove and sent back its one-word answer. Set the cucumber between 2 chopsticks, then slice down until your knife hits the sticks. Cut along the entire thing, then flip it over and do the same thing, but this time cutting at an angle. Next, stretch out the cucumber into an accordion and coat it in cornstarch before deep frying it. Once it's crispy, dip it in ranch dressing and try your best to eat it. Set the cucumber between Anchor a track into the rock and ice along the climbing routes on Mount Everest. Then attach carts at the base that can lock onto the track before using a chain lift to pull it up. Then start loading in the frozen bodies that have been stuck along the mountain. Next, just let gravity handle the rest. Now this sounds fine until you remember the extreme cold makes metal brittle, while shifting ice and deep crevices would tear the track apart. So instead of a smooth ride, the carts would break apart and the bodies would go flying. Anchor a track. If you try to copy a $100 bill, your printer will look for a special pattern of circles on the note. As soon as it finds them, it flags it as currency and immediately cancels the printing process. Now you might think you could just tape paper over those circles, then print out all the money you want. But modern notes have other secret markers, some that nobody even knows about. And when your printer finds them, well, it'll recognize the bill and block it. The glass is placed between the pike and the fish. The pike lunges and slams straight into it. He tries again and again, but every time it hurts. Eventually, he stops trying. Later, the glass is completely removed. Now there's nothing between him and the fish. They swim right in front of him, but he doesn't attack. Even when nothing is stopping him, he won't try. Meaning what's holding him back isn't the glass, it's the pain of what happened before. The glass is cut the soda can into a thin sheet of metal. Next, cut out a small rectangle and fold it to create a channel for air. Then cut out a long strip, threading it through the rectangle to form a sharp edge inside. After that, cut the bottle caps into different shapes, fitting them around the metal to create a chamber. And when you blow into it, air will rush through, hitting the sharp edge, which vibrates it to create sound, turning trash into a whistle. If someone falls off the safari ride, the driver won't stop. They'll speed up. Because in that moment, it's already too late. 1 second they're there, the next, a crocodile has pulled them under the water. And if the driver stopped, a family member would jump in to help. Then another and another, until one death becomes several. So, a former worker claims that they're trained to radio for help and speed away. If someone falls off the safari ride, if you drop your key into a muddy puddle, the tiny dirt particles scatter light in every direction, making it impossible to see. Instead, fill a clear sandwich bag with clean water and press it down onto the surface. The flexible plastic presses into the mud below, pushing the murky water out from between your eyes and the bottom. Now, light can pass through clean water without bouncing off dirt particles, which will reveal your key right where it sank. If you drop your key in, he slid the glass bowl onto the rod and repeated this until it was completely stacked. Then the rod was spun, and when Benjamin Franklin touched the glass with wet fingers, it created a small amount of friction which vibrated the glass, sending out eerie sounds through the air. But some people fainted when they heard it, and after a boy died, people thought the instrument was haunted. Now, some blamed lead poisoning from the paint, but no one ever proved this, so the mystery still stands. He watched the eggs hatch outside his second-story window. Then the mother suddenly jumped off, dropping nearly 10 feet to the concrete. And the ducklings started following her, so he sprinted downstairs. Just as the ducklings were stepping off the edge, he held out his hands and caught it mid-air, then another and another, catching each one as they fell. He placed them in a box and carried them to the river, holding them low so the mother would follow before they swam away together. Stick dry spaghetti into one side of a hot dog, then gently lower it into boiling water. Once the pasta's cooked and the hot dog is heated through, lay the noodles flat beside the hot dog and spread a thin layer of sauce and cheese over the pasta. Then roll the hot dog forward, letting the noodles coil around it. Place it into a buttered bun and add more sauce and cheese on top. Then bake it until the bun gets toasted and the cheese melts, giving you a spaghetti hot dog. When you hit your opponent in Battleship, most people just keep firing left to right to finish it. That's because they read the board from left to right, just like a book. Now, the outside columns and 2 middle columns are targeted more often, while others not so much. So, to win, place your ships vertically in the less popular zones. And instead of randomly guessing, use a checkerboard pattern. Since ships are at least 2 squares long, you're guaranteed to hit every ship while skipping half the board, meaning you cover more space while using fewer guesses. When you hit your opponent, when the fish lays an egg, a catfish will come to eat it and replace it with her own egg in the process. To protect her babies, the fish will scoop them all up in her mouth, unintentionally sucking the catfish egg too. And since the catfish hatches way faster, it eats the other eggs inside before they can even hatch. Then it'll stay with the mother, who can't tell the difference and raises it like her own child, until it's ready to swim away and repeat the cycle. When the fish lays, imagine you wake up and everyone on your flight is unconscious, but the plane is flying perfectly straight, so the pilots must be fine, right? You make your way to the cockpit. One pilot collapsed in the doorway. The other is slumped over in his chair. Now, this could be a dream, but you grab the mic and scream for help anyway. There's no response. You decide to push the pilot out of the seat, but his arm catches the controls and moves it around. The alarm screams. If you grew the hair on your head for your entire life, it could end up reaching past your ankles. But if you tried doing the same with your arm hair, it would stop at a specific length by itself. You see, each hair has its own life cycle, where it goes from growing to resting